Loki. Because of his long hair, Tony calls him Rock of Ages, which is a jukebox musical, which ironically also had a movie come out the same year as the Avengers. And yeah, as you can see, that's Tom Cruise. There's definitely a resemblance there. For similar reasons, Tony calls Thor Point Break because of how closely his hair resembles Patrick Swayze's from the 1991 movie. And that's Keanu Reeves co-starring with him. Another nickname Tony had for him was Shakespeare in the Park, mainly because of how Thor spoke in the earlier MCU. Well, they're both bald. As many of you pointed out in part 1, another nickname Tony had for Thor is Lebowski. This is when he got bigger in Endgame, and it's a reference to the Coen brothers movie The Big Lebowski, starring Jeff Bridges, who also played Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man movie. So if Tony can make a Jeff Bridges reference, is Jeff alive in the MCU? Because Stane is dead. Yet another nickname for Loki is Reindeer Games. It's really just for the horns on his helmet and has nothing to do with the Ben Affleck movie that came out in 2000. And by the way, that has nothing to do with reindeer either. On to Hawkeye. Tony calls him Legolas from Lord of the Rings because, well, you know, bow and arrows. Ebony Maw's notably called Squidward. I mean, this is just a good call. And in the first Iron Man movie, Tony calls Stan Lee Hef, a nod to Hugh Hefner, the Playboy magazine founder, who had a thing for robes, among other things. That's it for now, but Underoos is a brand of children's underwear made by Fruit of the Loom, and yes, Spider-Man did have his very own pair, along with other superheroes.
Underoos look out of sight!
Superman!
And a shout out to the gaming community, Tony calls Rocket Ratchet, as in the mechanic Lombax from the Ratchet & Clank series. Tony calls the Winter Soldier Manchurian Candidate. Now this is a reference to a novel and a pair of movies about an American soldier who becomes an unwitting assassin for a communist conspiracy. So yeah, this one's pretty on the nose. Ant-Man is called Stuart Little. Now if you haven't read the E.B. White book about the titular talking mouse, then you've probably seen the 1999 movie, which was co-written by M. Night Shyamalan of all people. And for the kinda sorta Mandarin, Trevor Slattery from Iron Man 3, Tony calls him Ringo because of his resemblance to the Beatles drummer, Ringo Starr. One of their earliest scenes together, Tony comments on Steve Rogers spending time as a capsicle, which, yeah, for sure. But did you know that capsicles exist in real life too? I mean, it's an Avengers branded popsicle, but you know, still pretty close. Sticking with foods, Hulk is called Jolly Green, as in the Jolly Green Giant, the mascot for the Green Giant Frozen Vegetables Company. You know, because they're green. The first time Tony meets Rocket, he jokes that he thought he was a Build-A-Bear. Now, ironically, there are lots of Marvel characters that you could use to make a Build-A-Bear, but none of those options are Rocket. But I did find Groot. In Endgame, Tony calls Ant-Man Pissant, which has nothing to do with insects. Just a word that means an insignificant or contemptible person or thing. And it's considered vulgar, kids, so don't be shouting this around the house.
Are you Tony Stank?
Yes, this is Tony Stank.
Rest in power, Stan.